Stand clear.
100% Wild Podcast.
So for all you listeners,
hello and welcome to
definitely not your favorite outdoor podcast.
What's up, everybody? Welcome back to the Drury Outdoors 100% Wild Podcast. This is the special Longbeard Legends series, and we're into phase one, powered by DeerCast. My name is Tim Chelsvik. That's Matt Drury.
And we got the world famous Ray I. I'm saying world because I don't believe there's a country you probably haven't killed a turkey in if one exists, right? Like,
pretty much.
Zambia.
So he's the expert. Last week we had Ray on, and he kind of took us through, all kinds of different history. He opened it up. But what we wanted to do in this week's episode, it's kicking off a 5-series run of what we're calling the Longbeard Legend series. And what we're going to do is we're going to have guys on each week that really helped shape this industry in one way or another, and going to go through a little bit of history, going to go tell some good old stories. But along the way, we're also going to help. Ray is guiding us through, helping to teach us in the audience a little bit more about the wild turkey and how you can succeed in what we're calling the different phases of turkey season. It's not something Tim and I came up with because we're not good enough to do that. Ray came up with the phases. We're kind of going towards like what we do with 13 and DeerCast, and he broke it down into these phases, and we're going to talk about one each week.
I like it. Yeah.
All right. What do you got?
So, we got Captain Ernie Calandrelli on this week. And I say captain because he's a legit cat. I think we have to salute him.
I'll salute you. What's up, Ernie?
What's going on, guys?
So Tim, do you have a little bit of an intro for Brother Ernie here?
Well, so he's placed in the top 10 of over 100 turkey calling competitions, which is a lot. And word on the street is if God is a turkey, Ernie is screwed.
So you're retired now, but you spent 34 years, right, with as the PR director and head of marketing or advertising with Quaker Boy, right?
Full time, but I actually started helping Dick sell calls out of the trunk starting in 1977.
Woo!
It's been a long ride.
Back then, how did you describe your job selling merchandise from the trunk of a car?
I guess you would call it like a trunk salesman. It wasn't really a job. How I earned my wages then is when we were going to a turkey calling contest, Dick paid for the fuel. He bought me stuff to eat, and I paid my own entrance fees. But at the end of the day, we'd open that trunk up, and Ray could tell you this. There was many of us that did it. You open that trunk up and you pull them calls out, and if you did good enough in a contest, you sold a bunch of them.
That's right.
Then you could afford the gas home.
Well, Dick could.
So we want to. So we'll definitely dive into some of the history and some of the fun stories from the past. But like Matt was saying, this is our phase one show. And Ray, I think you refer to this as early season. So maybe you and Ernie can walk us through what are some of the characteristics of hunting turkeys at this point in the turkey season.
And first describe what the early season means to you. What the turkeys are doing.
Early season could be tough for turkey hunters because, as we've said in other episodes, turkey hunters out there across the country are taught that mating season, mating yelps, hen to gobbler. And then in the early season, when gobblers are pushing and fighting and starting to break up and hens are breaking up and they're chasing around and trying to get ready to gather the hens is a whole different game. So you got to try something different. And of course, everything is involved in that, is knowing your terrain, knowing the place you're hunting, knowing about the turkeys in your area, where they're at, the type of conditions and stuff, what's going on at the time you're hunting the turkeys, because it varies. And a poor hunter that just does the yelp and the cluck and relies on the mating season when it's early season, they have a tough time. They have a really tough time. So anybody that's a hardcore fall turkey hunter does really good in early season, because my tactics in early season is to target those gobblers because they're fighting, pushing for dominance, sorting out the pecking order and the social structure, and you can get in tight on those birds and challenge them with their own vocalization and be real successful that way.
And this is one of those areas where I know you've been a real advocate of gobbler yelping over the years, and some people, even when you mention that now, don't know what that is.
It amazes me over all the years. Turkeys have been doing it for 1 million years, and I've been teaching it for, I don't even want to say how long.
A million more.
And people still don't know what it is. I mean, it's like, hey, Ernie, I was telling the guys, I had a magazine article I sent in, and the guy took gobbler yelping out and put hen yelps in. I called him. He said, well, gobblers don't yelp, they gobble.
You were wrong, Ray. Just admit it.
So Ernie, how do you take this part of the season, and what are some of the tactics you use in order to succeed?
Well, Ray's exactly right, because, in the early season, I mean, a lot of turkeys are still, they're flocked up.
Yep.
And the hens are going to do the same thing as the gobblers. They're going to fight, carry on. They want to get their dominance into the group, too. And, you're actually, instead of hunting maybe a single gobbler, you're pretty much hunting a flock.
Yep.
And, Ray, yes, as we both know, the gobblers do yelp. And a lot of times, especially early on, you're going to hear a lot of the jakes. They're going to be yelping. The jakes are going to yelp and gobble and carry on. And that, a lot of times, is going to suck other turkeys in if there doesn't happen to be any around them. Because, of course, they're going to come in and they're going to want to get that dominance, especially the older guys that are a little bit tougher, that have been around for a little bit more. They pretty much, even though they don't have much of a brain, I believe that they pretty much know what's coming on down the road here in the next week or two, or how many days it is, have you. And they're going to be ready for it, because that's their time of the year right there. That's when they shine. That's when they fight. That's what they fight every day in a lot of cases. But they really get to fight. And as Ray mentioned earlier, when the testosterone levels come up and it's time to breed, and you'd be fighting too. So let's.
I do. Yeah.
Be like a night at the bar, right?
Old days.
Let's not go there, Ernie.
So when you guys are talking about this gobbler yelping, I mean, is it sound different than a hen yelping, or what's the difference?
It's really simple. All I teach, a little longer yelp. It could be deeper, it could be clear, it could be raspy. Slow your rhythm down a little bit, lengthen your yelp, and it's a gobbler yelp. And you can cluck and you can putt and cut just like they do. I've got audio of gobblers cutting, yelping, keying, fly down cackle. They do all the vocalizations. A lot of hunters hear gobblers but don't know they're gobblers. They think they're hens. It's like in some of the places where I'm gobbler yelping, I'll have somebody say, that sounds pretty good, but you need to speed that up a bit. You're calling too slow. They don't even realize I'm gobbler yelping.
Oh, thanks for the advice. Is that what you say? Appreciate it.
Wait, Ray, let me jump in there.
Sure.
And do you have the same belief to me? I mean, I've heard some gobblers yelp, but it doesn't even sound like a yelp.
That's true. Yes.
It is.
Like
People don't.
in what way? Why doesn't it even sound like a yelp?
I missed that, Matt.
So I said, in what way? Why doesn't it even sound like a yelp?
Because I think everybody's in tune to hearing hens yelping, and that's all they're listening for. Whatever. All of a sudden, they hear something else off the wall, and I don't know if I want to say that it doesn't sound like a yelp, but they don't relate it to a turkey.
It sounds like a dog barking, a small dog sometimes.
Now, what was that? Well, that was so.
Huh.
Ray is much more, because he hunts adult gobblers so much in the fall. He's way more in tune to it than me. But yes, I've heard a bunch of gobblers yelp, and the jake yelp too. I mean, the jake yelp is way different. As soon as I hear a turkey yelping, I know if it's a jake or a hen. I mean, I've heard it enough times that there's jakes coming. How do you know that? I can tell by the sound of the yelp.
Is it higher pitched? What is it about the sound of the yelp for a jake?
It's clunky, I call it, or crunky. Yeah. It's the hens they'll sharpen them up and yelp pretty quick, and a jake at times will yelp quick too. But to me it's deeper. It's a little bit slower as far as the high to the low note. Not like a hen would put it out there crisply, where a jake it kind of rolls over slower. And it sounds like clunky or yunky to me. Do you agree, Ray?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. And then another side of that, too, is there's times when an adult gobbler, like a 3-year-old gobbler, will yelp hard and fast with short, choppy yelps and yelp 30 times in a row, and people don't realize they do that.
Maybe my problem is I sound like a Jake when I'm running a call. You said clunky, right?
Clunky.
Can't hit the highs, can't hit the lows. I'm just a clunky old Jake.
I Jake yelp a lot in the spring.
Yep.
I mean, especially if I got a bird hung up, you don't want to come. And, of course, we all do it. And I've been with Ray, and I've seen him do. You throw the kitchen sink at him.
Yep.
Mm-hmm. Well,
He's not going to move them.
This also reminds me just of, we're talking about early season. Youth seasons are typically even earlier than when most of us are getting out.
Very good. Very good. I've killed more turkeys with kids during the youth season by gobbler yelping than any other method.
Nice.
Absolutely.
Then you hand them the gun real quick.
No, Tim.
No, that's not what I'm saying.
Well,
I'm
that's...
going
What's that, Ernie?
to remember that one. I do a lot of youth hunts.
Yeah.
Yep.
Every spring, so.
Well, that phase breakdown is brought to you by the DoD signature series of turkey calls from HS Strut, designed by six-time world champ Mark Drury and approved by the DoD team. The new tongue series of mouth calls are designed with cutting-edge technology. You can gobbler yelp on them. I've tried.
Can you? I wouldn't know. That's something I've not tried yet.
Something to throw
I'm
in
just
your
trying to get
toolbox.
down regular yelping.
Yes, yeah. So let's kind of take a step back in time, like the history between you guys.
Don't go there.
Okay.
All right, the show's over.
Yeah, we're trying to keep it PG here for folks. But where'd you guys meet, and how did you guys
Oh my
become
gosh.
buddies?
Well, I've already told them on one podcast that I went to Niagara Falls, New York in 1980 for the NWTF's national convention, and two guys come down the hall saying, "Hey, what are you doing?" I was putting my suitcase in my room and closed the door, and I didn't get that suitcase until I went home. Wonder who that
It
was.
was Ernie and Paul Butsky, right?
Picked Ray up at the airport. I brought him to the hotel, and he put his room. He put two bags inside the room, and he got them out of there 3 days later.
That's right.
Jeez.
True story.
Burning it down.
Yeah,
So-
the heck of-
So the love story was right there. You found your people, right?
well, we actually met before
Yeah.
that. Yeah, we met before that at the U.S. Open. I don't
Yeah.
know what 78, 79.
Yeah, somewhere in there.
Where Ray and Stevie Stoltz come up together. Yep, and that's where it was in Blaine, Pennsylvania.
Yep.
And that's where we met.
So back in the early days of the calling contests and all that, there wasn't. I am assuming it wasn't like it was big prize money or I'm sure it was okay for the time. But what motivated you, or how'd you even know about these contests going into it? Was it turkey magazines or was
Websites?
it? Yeah, it
Wasn't
websites.
websites. Go ahead, Ernie.
Well, I learned about my first one. I had written a story in a New York Sportsman magazine about spring gobbler hunting. And where my story ended, there was an ad for a turkey calling contest on the preceding page. And I looked, and I wasn't married then or anything. Me and my girlfriend, who, we are married now for 44 years. But I looked at it, and I said, man, I never heard of a turkey calling contest. I says, let's go to it. Because, of course, I was on, back in the early days, I was on fire about it. And, and I ran mouth calls then. But when I was a real little kid going down the interstate, you'd stop at the thruway stops. And my father, to shut me up, he would give me, he would buy me them bird calls, them little bird calls. So of course, when I put a turkey call in my mouth, I could get sound out of it pretty easy. And, right away, I was running a mouth call. So we went to the turkey calling contest. It was, I don't even remember the name of it, but it was in Oswego, New York. And I walked in the room there, and the first person I run into is, Ben Lee. And he's standing there. And then Dick Kirby's there. And that's the first time I'd ever met him. Kelly Cooper's in there. Jim Clay's in there. And a couple of the guys I really didn't know till there. I never heard of Dick Kirby or anything. Ben Lee, yeah, I had heard of Ben Lee. And they all seemed to kind of take me under their wing. And everybody tried to help me and what have you. And they had an amateur calling contest, and I decided to get in it. and I ended up second in that. But they told me the guy that won calls in every contest that there is, and he had no business being in the amateur contest.
Wow.
And after he was one of them guys that was always a thorn in my side.
Was it Paul?
Paul had a sporting goods store. He worked at a carbon plant, but he had a sporting goods store on the side. Me and Paul went to school together, and so I used to go to a sporting goods store at night. He sold, pretty much just mostly all fishing stuff. And, we talk every night. So after I did this, I said, you ought to try this stuff. So, of course, Dick, once I met Dick, he gave me, a bunch of mouth calls and that. And so I gave some to Paul, and he got started, and we worked together many nights. And I said, man, this guy's pretty darn good for just starting out like this. So I talked him into going to the same contest that I was in. I couldn't call. Oh, right after that first contest, Dick took me to the Pennsylvania States. He called me out of the blue because we only lived 45 miles apart. And he says, would you go to this turkey calling contest with me? Yeah. So I went down there with him. And Billy O'Daniels and Louis Stowe, all them guys were there. And I won.
Whoa.
Nice.
That's awesome.
Once that happened, that set a fire under me right there, or I was going to get after it. But, to make a long story short, Paul didn't want to go to this contest. I'm not doing it. I says, come on, you're going. I drove. I picked him up. I threw him in the car. And it's like a 4-hour ride. We had to spend the night. We took him. He wins the amateur contest that year. You talk about lighting a fire.
Yeah.
That lit him. That was one of the biggest mistakes of my outdoor career. It cost a lot of second and third, but it moved me into a lot of second and third place, I could tell you. And I talked to Paul 2 nights ago, and he was with your dad and cuz on one of the hunts in Missouri, Matt. And he was yelping and cutting it. There was 2 gobblers coming up over a hill. And I called him the other night. He said, what's going on? I says, I just got to tell you, I saw that clip, from when you and Cuz Mark were talking about it on an old tram road. And you call these 2 gobblers up over the hill. And you ran that call. I said, I think you're better now than you were in the mid-'80s. Wow. That's how good he sounded. That was incredible. It was incredible.
You talking
me
about
and
this?
him traveled many miles. And Ray, what did we travel for? If they had a 4-poster trophy, we were on it.
Yep, absolutely.
There was no money.
No money.
It cost a fortune to get there and whatever. We drive all night, what have you. Clarksburg, West Virginia,
Yep.
Pennsylvania. We flew to Mobile, Alabama for nothing.
Yeah, for nothing, for a trophy. Hopefully to get a trophy.
Wow.
The 4-poster you were styling.
Show that up to your girlfriend or your wife. Hey, look, honey, I just dropped $500 on this trip.
Those are some of the best pictures. Like, you follow these guys on Facebook or Instagram or wherever they're at. A lot of these guys are on Facebook, and you see some of those old photos popping up from the calling, the 70s and the 80s and the big trucker hats. And it is really cool, the nostalgia of it. That's really what this series is all about, just kind of going through some of that.
You said, how did you know about the contest? You mentioned that in Missouri, in the Midwest, every little small town had a turkey calling contest. It was a big event. It was in all the newspapers. They advertised it on the radio, and everybody went. It was a doings. They had food there, and you would start early and go to 15 to 20 different contests around the state of Missouri or the Midwest. And then you thought you was getting good, and you said, hey, they got one in Yellville, Arkansas. We went down there, me and Kenny Montz, and they were doing the Kiki Run down there. We hadn't done that yet back in the early 70s.
I know the St. Genevieve, when I was a young kid, the county fair, they always had a turkey calling contest at the county fair every year. And because I remember Stoltz would come down, Jeff Probst would come down, Mark, would be there a long, long time ago. But it must be what you're talking about, where all the little areas had their own
all the communities had a turkey calling contest. Fredericktown had a contest, and I went there. Leroy Bromgart was the big MC that year, and he was the main judge. And my uncle took me over there, told me to call on this. It was like 1971, 72 anyway. That was one of the first times. They always just said, do the yelp of the hen and the cluck of the hen. And this particular year, for whatever reason, they said you can do a favorite call. What is your favorite call? So I did some yelping, and I went, pop, 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 pop. Leroy stopped the contest, came out on the stage, and said that caller's disqualified because he did the alarm putt. And my uncle hollered, "I got a freezer full of them SBs doing that alarm putt." And, of course, they drug him out of the building. But, what are you going to do?
That's amazing. So this is something that they didn't want in the competition?
Yeah, they said it was an alarm putt that would scare the turkey. He was telling everybody there that caller did an alarm call that would scare the turkeys off.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, Leroy also had the pity patoo.
Yes, he did. He had the pity pit too.
What's that?
I got no idea.
Oh, Ernie.
He called it.
Was that a call he had?
Yeah, it's called the pity pitu, the sound.
Huh.
Pity pitu, pity pitu. Remember, he used to say when the redbirds are singing, Theodore, Theodore, wort, wort, wort.
You guys are taking us in weird places.
Every time I hear a cardinal now, when I hear that stupid Theodore. Thanks for ruining
But
Cardinals.
Ben Lee, you mentioned Ben Lee, Ernie. Boy, what a history with that guy, huh?
And I had some fun with that man.
Take us through, because we hear that name a lot, and I remember 20 years ago being here. His son, I think Ben Lee, his name is Ben Lee as well, right? Ben Lee Jr. What was it?
Yeah, we call him Roger.
Roger, yeah.
He had a company, and we were talking to him I forget what it was. I feel like it was something to do with videoing or like some sort of camera or something. But anyways, that's really all I ever knew about it. But I heard Mark, I hear you guys, I always hear the name Ben Lee like he is the kind of, it started with him, right? Or, he was one of those guys. Take us through a little bit of that history with him, or what his story was.
How much of it can we tell?
Tell it all. But Ben Lee, in my opinion, if it wasn't for Ben Lee, it probably would have got to where it is, but it would have took a lot longer.
Yeah.
Ben Lee was one promoting son of a gun now.
One of the best ever.
Where, I mean, he's got all these beards hanging around his neck. He's 400 and some pounds.
Ooh.
He's got all these spurs around his hat, and he ain't scared to talk to somebody. He's right up in your face and letting you know exactly what he thinks, and he ain't worried about a thing.
Yeah, one of the best entertainers ever.
Absolutely. He always put on a show no matter where he was.
So what was it about him? What, was he an expert turkey caller? Or was he, obviously,
Both.
you're talking
Hunter
about
and
all
caller.
these,
He was a killer. He was a killer.
Did he have a line of videos back then?
Yeah.
Yeah, early ones, and he was 5-time world champion back like in the 70s, I believe.
Early 70s, yeah.
Yeah.
That seems to be an important component. Like, you can't just be a hunter. You can't just be an entertainer. You have to be able to do both in order to be an effective communicator. And whether it's forging your own niche in the industry or moving the conversation forward, you've got to have both those things come together. A lot of guys have a lot of one side, but not so much the other.
Ben was able to take turkey calling and turkey hunting onto the main stage. He was on the Mike Douglas show, and he was on the different TV shows, and he took it a step further than everybody else, car companies and things like that. He's one of the earliest promoters, good promoters, and educators in turkey hunting. He took turkey hunting everywhere, and any place there was an event, a calling contest or a sports show, he was the speaker. And he was really unique the way he do stuff. Like when he came to the St. Louis Boat and Sports Show, people don't realize this, St. Louis Boat and Sports Show, he goes into the office and has them announce world champion Ben Lee is entering the building, and they did it.
Wow.
That's Ben, right?
Brilliant.
Sounds like something Stoltz would do.
but that was Ben. That was Ben. And then he come right over to the booth and he started going on. But he was so funny. Like I don't remember, Ernie, if we was in Mobile, Alabama, or New Orleans, one of those two cities. Ben come in and all the big shots were in there, all the people with the Turkey Federation and stuff. And Ben come in and he had a $100 bill taped to the front of his hat. And somebody looked over and said, "Ben, what are you doing?" He said, "I've been trolling."
What's that mean?
Never mind.
Soliciting?
You're killing me, Small.
And it's a suffering show he did. He taped it right to his forehead.
Jeez.
I'm sorry. That's Ben.
Was it Ralphie Duran that was on with Carson or one of the late night shows?
He was on with Jay Leno.
Jay Leno.
Yeah.
That's taking turkey hunting to a mainstream platform like that.
There's been a couple of those guys that have done that through the years.
Well, that ain't nothing. Me and that guy on the screen up there, that guy right there, me and him was in a bar in Crossville, Tennessee once.
And?
Uh-oh.
You're awful quiet there, Ernie.
I never been there, so go ahead.
And he's like, "What's the statute of limitations here?" He's counting up the years. Jeez.
Hey, listen, we weren't saints as far as we don't have a couple beers in there, you know? That's right. I mean, that's the way it is.
Hell, you're still doing that.
Hey,
Still doing it, but you know what? I'll be 70 next month, so I know a lot of guys younger than me, unfortunately, that didn't make it this far.
yeah, that's true. Hey,
Yeah, too, Matt. You hit on a good point there. As far as personalities and all that, people that remained in the industry from when like Ray and I started, and Paul and Terry Rome,
Yep.
and there's only a handful of us that actually got into the industry. Not many of us. There's a few, but you know, a lot of the guys never even ended up getting into the industry. Which, and of course, in some cases it was their choice, and in some cases, you know, a lot of them didn't have. I mean, you got to be able to sell. You got to be able to promote. You got to have people got to like you, or you know, or the outdoor industry. It's like another brotherhood. People got to like you, or you're probably not going to make it.
That's the problem.
It's funny you say that, because when you guys were talking about that and you mentioned that Paul had a kind of like a sporting goods store, I had no clue about that. And I think about, you know, what is it, 40 or 50 years later, and when you go to the trade shows and you see you guys on the floor and, you know, you're working the booths, and you guys have a knack or a sixth sense almost that you have developed over these, you know, years to know, you know, how to talk about the product, how to, you know, get the sale, that's not something that just comes, you know, to some it comes naturally, but a lot of people, you got to work at that. And it's second nature to you guys, because you've been doing it so long, and to think that you're still doing it and still, you know, I know you're retired, but hell, you're still at all the shows, you know, you're there at NWTF, you were as well this year, and you're still there helping the industry go to that next season, right? Like I would think from you guys, then there was that, the Marks and Waddell's, and, you know, and then who would it have been after that? The Billy Yarguses, the Matt Van Sices, and I'm sure there's young guys coming up now, and it continues to roll. But those, you know, what I would say, you guys as kind of the forefathers of it, still are participating within it to help champion it to the next generation, right?
yeah, yeah.
Oh, and you know, like I told him, I said, as long as you're paying me, I'll go to every show in the country.
Hey, Ernie, we were always all family. The thing that we always got together, all of us, you know, Night and Hale, you guys, and whoever it was, even Jim Clay and all the different people. We're all like family. We all go out to eat together, and we go to turkey calling contests. We see each other at shows, and then when I went to work for Hunter Specialties, for that company at that time, that was a no-no. I was telling them earlier, I'd get scolded if I'd come and visit you or Dick Kirby or somebody, and they say, you can't do that. And me and you, I don't know if you remember this, but the reason where I'm going with this is me and you traveled and did a lot of shows, and we were at some show someplace. I think we even had the same room, and I put on the Quaker Boy shirt, and you put on the HS strut shirt, and we went down and had dinner. We laughed about that and laughed. They would just flip out if they knew I did that.
Oh, they still do. But that's what, see, way back when we first started doing it, it was a brotherhood.
Absolutely.
I mean, we're together. I mean, all the callers were, the ones that had to stay all night, we were together every night. We weren't separated.
Yep.
We went and had dinner together. We went and had a beer together.
Yep.
We were together. It was a brotherhood. And those of us that are still remaining, even though we're not competing anymore and everything, when we're at a show, we're together every night. The old guys are together in their own little corners, talking about the old days, having a good time, which is, I guess, what old people do. But, but all the good times that we had.
Flashbacks.
Well, that's what I love about this series and kind of going through these old times. What do you guys think that is it?
Matt, let me stop you. One funny thing that I just want to mention is, Ben, he's from the deep south of Alabama. And it always made me laugh. And I tell everybody, I knew Ben Lee, but Ben Lee couldn't say my name. He couldn't say Calandrelli. He used to call me Ken and Deddy.
Oh, jeez.
Yeah. Yeah.
Wonder what he would have said for Chelsvik.
Huh. Yeah, probably wouldn't have tried.
That's awesome.
But anyway, I just wanted to throw that in there.
Absolutely.
Well, and it's something that I think about all the time is there's a Clint Black song where he's talking about these are the good old days. Like, you always look back with so much fondness on, what happened in the past. And you can tend to miss out on what's happening right now. And like what we're doing here with DeerCast, I look forward to years from now telling stories about how crazy that startup was. And we're laughing
because it gets better.
Yeah, absolutely. Because there's just so much that you claw and you fight and you make things happen and you have fun with the people that you're fighting with. You get this band of brothers mentality. And it's hard to sometimes stop and realize that, oh, hey, I'm living these days that at some point in the future, I'll be laughing about and cutting up with my old buddies.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Like you guys.
Is there a certain you look back on all the years that you've been doing this, is there a certain one product or a certain moment or thing that you're like, man, this really catapulted us to the next level or the industry to the next level?
Well, I think in the mouth calls, as soon as they put a cut on them, that made a big difference. I mean, they're all straight reads way back, and then I don't know. Tell me if I'm wrong, Ray, but I believe Dick put the first cut reeded call out.
Yep, true.
Was the old boss? No, it was the old Turk.
The old Turk. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and then he went to the two thinner reeds with the old boss hen, and right now the old boss hen for Quaker Boy is still their number one selling mouth call.
That's awesome.
Like how many years? Wow, lots of them.
I should say that we've got Chris Kirby coming up in a couple of shows.
Yeah.
So
is he the next episode or the episode after that?
2 shows out.
Okay.
Yep.
Yeah. Look forward to hearing some of the history.
Yeah, you're talking about the mouth calls, Ernie. When I flew up to Pennsylvania to Hershey in 1977 for the first Grand National, in Missouri they were running lead frames, propylastic single reeds. And that's where I saw my first multiple reed calls. Terry Round was blowing a double reed. It was amazing. Hear those guys call, and they were doing the key run. And Terry and Robbie and the boys, and that's where I met Rob Keck and David and Harold and all them, and took me under their wing, and I came back and built a double reed in 1978. I won every contest in Missouri blowing a double reed call that I learned from those guys.
Yeah, I mean, that's, innovations, a lot of innovations that you don't really even think about then, but you sure do now.
Yes.
What was it about that area, that Northeast? I mean, was it that the turkey population was more advanced at that point than in the Midwest? Like, what was it that you had this chunk of the country where they were so dialed into the wild turkey and innovating like that?
Well, out east out there, they've had turkey hunting for years, fall hunting forever, and they had turkey hunting in Missouri. We didn't have our first season in 1960, so it was fairly new in Missouri. In the early 70s when I was turkey hunting, it had only been open 10 years, so fairly new in Missouri compared to out east where these guys were.
Especially talking about Pennsylvania.
Yeah, Pennsylvania, right.
Oh, not New York so much. No. I think our first spring gobbler season was in like '69.
Yeah.
But there was a fall season before that.
Right.
But in that area of Pennsylvania, and of course, I call the core of it is Perry County, Pennsylvania.
Yep.
That's where Holmes came from. That a lot of phenomenal turkey. I'm not going to there's a lot of phenomenal turkey hunters. Sure. Yeah, just work right on down the line. Matt Moret. And I remember Matt Moret coming to the Harrisburg show. His father had to hold him by the hand. He was like 5 years old.
Really?
And the one thing I'm going to say about Matt is he was a good kid then. His father was a great guy. He'd bring him, introduce him, everybody. Matt started calling back then. And Matt was, one of the guys. He made a career out of it. Now he's with the Pennsylvania Game Commission, but he still made a career in the outdoor industry, and he definitely made a major impact on it.
Yes.
Because he's a good guy, and he knew how to walk the walk and talk the talk. And, to this day, he's one of the stellar individuals that really started it as a baby and worked up into it. He's in the sport. He might be pushing 50. So.
Do you guys ever, look back, and was there a competitor that you had that maybe their attitude or they were, we talk about this brotherhood and everybody was kind of on the same page, but was there one guy that it's like, man, so-and-so's here, God, but he was a great, great competitor too on top of that?
Do you mean, personality-wise?
Yeah. Yeah.
There was a few. There was a couple that we'd really rather not look at, but there was a few more that I would have rather not called again.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Sure.
We had Buzz Baker. You remember Buzz Baker? They nicknamed him that because he'd do the buzz when he did the kiki. Buzz, 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 buzz.
I remember going to Kiki to the Worlds in Mobile, and Hannes Williams won.
Yeah.
And he couldn't even whistle.
Oh. Wow.
Yeah, I guarantee you back then there wasn't no Yankee winning that contest.
That's for sure.
One of the things.
All fun. And the best thing about it is we're all with Ben. So, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
And it was all fun. All the local boys down there and all great guys. Actually, at the convention last week, one of Ben's cohorts, Seaborn Hicks.
Oh, Seeb.
Yeah. He was in Nashville last week.
Oh,
Paul got hooked over. He brought him over to me, and I'm looking at this guy. Paul says, "You ain't gonna believe who this is." I said, "What?" He said, "It's Seaborn Hooks." Hell, I almost fell on the floor.
Yes.
Jeez.
Yeah. You remember?
Pushing 50 years.
Oh my gosh! Yeah, I remember. He always called him Seeb. Yeah, remember when Ben had the surgery later in life? When he had the surgery, the stomach deal, and then he had the real bad gas. And me and you and Paul would always try to stay out of the seminar room or where Ben was talking because he'd always point us out. And Seeb was in there, and Ben said, "Well, I got on an airplane. They evacuated an airplane. Ain't that right, Seeb? They evacuated an airplane." Remember? Paul says, "I ain't going in there. He'll tell me to nullify he evacuated an airplane." we were in Iowa at a turkey calling championship, and they had been up front judging, and the MC was up there, and he told the MC, said, "We need to take a break." And the MC says, "Well, we can't take a break." And there was an older gentleman, I don't know why I can't think of his name right now. He was the Missouri State president. He was sitting there looking around. He was like in his 80s, and he was sitting there, and Ben says, "I'm telling you, we need to take a break." And the guy said, "We can't take a break right now." And Ben says, "Okay." By the time I looked up, and I seen Ben doing that, laughing like that, and I knew, and I got up and I started leaving. You ought to have seen the people part when that started, when that come. And that old guy was the last guy at the table. He was going, making his nose up in the air and shaking his head.
ketchup?
MC run out like 6 rows back, got up and left the room. It was so bad.
Are we talking about?
Yes,
Okay,
yes.
just checking.
Ben's up there laughing. He says, "I told them they need to take a break."
Had to vent.
Thought about it.
This reminds me so much of hearing my dad tell stories from the job site. All of his buddies had nicknames. Like no one had a regular.
Same. For back home, everybody's got a nickname.
Yeah. What's up,
Itchy
Steve?
and Rambo and
Hair lip.
yeah.
Oh man. Well, one of the things is it's fun and interesting to hear you guys talk about is like everyone in this Longbeard series is referencing lead mouth calls.
Oh, I was thinking about that. Like, anybody get cancer from that, or like lead poisoning?
What was the point where you realized, oh man, we shouldn't be putting these?
Plumber's lead used to make mouth calls out of that.
Like
Propylastic. Trojans were the best.
Tell them right now.
Janet, hey, Ernie, Janet used to tell everybody that was what was wrong with me. I blow lead mouth calls.
I bought plenty of them back then.
Yeah. If you remember, Leroy had a lead frame. He had tape on one side and no tape on the other. Just tape on one side, and it was lead with propylastic. I went up to the drugstore in Hillsboro, Missouri back in the day when I finally started using flashing aluminum and making calls, and the Trojans made the best. So I went up and I'd get those, and this druggist, he'd look at me, and I'd buy all his outdated Trojans, by the
I was
gross.
like, man, don't do this.
He's playing
I
with
come
fire.
in there one day to get it. He wasn't in there. So there was a different guy in there. I said, "Hey, he's supposed to set some Trojans back for me. I get them from outdated." And he looked at me and he looked around. And he got to looking. I said, "I'll take a couple gross if you got them." And he says, "Okay." He looked around. He says, "You're either the most popular guy or you're one sick SB in town, or one sick."
Woo. Jeez.
Guys have come a long way.
What was the point where you realized, oh, maybe we should start making these out of aluminum?
They had them in Pennsylvania. That's where I learned dental dam, because we always had proplastics. They went to the dental dam, the thicker latex that everybody uses now.
But what about the aluminum part? Ernie, do you remember?
To cut frames out of aluminum siding.
Yep.
That's what he used. He used tin snips to just cut the frames out of the aluminum siding.
Jeez.
It wasn't real cost efficient.
No.
No. I just think about.
They did work. Well, at his kitchen table.
Yeah.
I think about all the lead split shots I bit growing up fishing and what that's going to do.
Ernie, how many calls do you think you have made, mouth calls, over the years? How many mouth calls do you think you've made over the years?
I've personally made?
Yeah.
I don't make them.
You don't make them?
People make them for me.
I thought I thought you were making back in the day, making a bunch of those.
Oh no, I was the boss of the people making them.
He had people for that.
I see.
I made hundreds of thousands of them, not just by hand, but a machine run. I did all Hunter Specialties calls for their first 2 years.
Yeah.
So it was.
I make wing bones.
Yes,
Well,
you
I
did.
knew that. I knew that you had that specialty. So when you're making a wing bone, like, give us a little bit of a rundown of like, what do what's it take to make a wing bone?
I just happen to have one right there. But anyway, well, it's the three main bones of the turkey's wing. I don't know if you could see it real good.
Yep.
But this is the part that goes in here. And then these other two bones hang underneath it. And they actually flip out, when he stretches their wings out or what have you. But, what you do is you take it off at the joint. I scrape all the meat. I get them separated, scrape all the meat off them. Then I cut them off. And before I do, you got to blow the marrow out of them or clean the marrow out of them. And then you got to fit them together. That's what I do. And what I do is I use a Dremel tool. Now, I used to have to do it by hand. But, I use a Dremel tool, cut the inside out, use a belt sander to get the pieces to fit together. Then I touch them with super glue to hold them. But you got to do both because you got two joints on the call. You can see right there. And then I use a two-part epoxy, and go around it to try to make it as neat as possible. Then after it dries, you sand. Well, before I do that, I'm sorry, I stick them at least 24 hours in peroxide to get them white. That's what gets them white and gets all the dead meat or whatever off them. But then once you get them together, I use that two-part epoxy, and then you got to sand them down. And, and I never used to, and a lot of the older ones were just glued together, and that was it. But then, and I'm not even close. I'm not artistic. These are my wing bones. They come from the heart. But some of the wing bones the guys do now are just, I look at them and I'm just, wow.
Yeah.
These guys are so artistically talented. It's incredible.
Yeah.
Mine, they're okay. They're sufficient. They're a heck of a lot better than they were when I first started. I'm happy with them, and the people that get them off me seem to be happy with them. But they work pretty good too. It's just a bone, and turkeys like them. Let me see if I can get something out of here. And you don't even have to suck on them and make them use. They make good strikers on a glass call or a
they
slate
do.
call. Any different uses.
It
It gives duty to again use up more of that gobbler that I killed, or
Yeah. Now Dick Kirby, he used to do that as well, right?
yeah, he made a few. Yeah, I just got done making 104.
Holy cow.
So you do make calls, just not diaphragms.
How do you source those wings?
I make wing bones. How do I get them?
Yeah.
I'm leaving March 22nd. I'm going Mississippi, Texas, Alabama, Georgia, Ohio, Kentucky.
Now you used to always go down to the Mossy Oak camp down in Texas, right?
I'll be in the Mossy Oak camp, and we have been known to kill a good number of turkeys there. And all afternoon, I'm scraping bones before we go.
Yeah.
Wings off. I scrape the bones, and when I come out of there, I normally got a pile of them.
Nice.
Down in the Ozarks, what was always popular was the wing bone more than anything else. And when I started blowing a mouth call down there, they told me I shouldn't do that. That didn't sound natural. I needed to get a wing bone. And a lot of them would make wing bones there at their place. And we mentioned calling contests. I'll tell you how that has changed. Piedmont, Missouri, back in the 70s, had a wing bone division. Oh. They had a mouth and mouth call. If you called with your voice, you called in mouth and mouth call. And they had a wing bone division. And in wing bone division, they asked for the kiki run, fly down, cackle, gobbler, yelp on a wing bone.
That'd be pretty tough.
Wow.
I suspect.
Oh, then I called it in with a pen barrel.
That's ingenious.
No way.
Like MacGyver.
Yeah. You take out the old ballpoint screw out pen
Yeah.
barrel, flip it around to the small end, sound just like a wing bone.
Yeah.
Really?
There's a guy
Tim?
named Ed Shirts that makes strikers, and he was at NWTF the year that you and I went, and he was walking around with a clamshell and using a clamshell as like a slate.
You'll see
Pretty
it all
cool.
down there. Every way to call turkey, they've made it down at NWTF convention.
Our buddy Chad from Central Pennsylvania has a question about calling, specifically around his season start there in April.
All right, so the question of the day is probably presented by Cold Steel Knives, professional hunting knives for real hunters. Get the click and cut hunter's model with 3 interchangeable blades for everything your spring turkey hunt throws at you.
All right, Chad.
Hi, this is Chad Wilson. I'm from Central Pennsylvania. I just had a question. Our season don't start till the end of April. Our turkeys are usually pretty much henned up by then. I just wanted to know what the best option was for decoys, or use them, not use them, what to use, and what's the best type of calling, and when I should call or when I shouldn't call. Thank you guys for your help, and have a good season.
What do you got, Ernie?
All right. Well, for me, decoys help you and decoys hurt you. But when the decoys help you, they help you tremendously well. But I'll stick a decoys out. I use a hen and a jake, and when I am using decoys, and the first turkey that spooks off the decoy, I'm done with decoys for a week. No matter what. Hens will spook off them, gobblers. But I know that's not the case all the time. But in certain parts of that breeding season, they don't like why they're coming to a call and they see another turkey and they run away or go the other way. I don't know. I have no idea why. And so once I get a turkey to spook off a decoy, I don't use decoys for a week. I use decoys a lot. I'm one of them people that are I'm all for modern technology, and it makes it easy because no matter where I'm hunting, I just got a little junk video camera now I carry, and normally still this far down the road, I'm calling for other people most of the time. And so I got to have something to do. So I always got my video camera, and the video you get with decoys is all over it because they do a lot of crazy things with a decoy, and you don't have to be in any hurry. Plus it takes all the attention off you. The calling wise, it's like anything else at that time of the year. The best gobbler to kill is a gobbler without a hen. But, their time, they are end up, and I don't care what subspecies you're hunting. People say Merriams are easy, reels are, they're easy if they don't have any hens with them. If they don't have any hens with them and they're ready to breed, they'll run you right over you, make a call at them. But when they have hens, it gets a little bit tougher. And I cut at them. If they're henned up, and I try to make the lead or the boss hen of that particular group, you're in her territory. She don't want you in her territory. You get in there, you start cutting and hammering them with cutting and yelping. If you can get her to start doing back to you what you're doing, I try to do it as hard or as loud or faster or harder than she's doing it to try and piss her off enough to come over and try to run me out of the territory. Because, of course, when that happens, the gobbler's going to follow right behind.
Call the hens, absolutely.
So are you cutting her off when she starts calling, or are you kind of cutting her off with your own calling?
As soon as she starts, I'm jumping right on her. She starts cutting at me, I'm jumping right back. I'm trying to put her down, talk down to her. I'm trying to aggravate her and make her mad. Me and Paul and Robbie Rome used to hunt every first 2 or 3 days in New York every year. And I tell you right now, we hammered some turkeys. 2 up front, or one guy up front shooting, and 2 of us behind just cutting and carrying on. And we used to wear them out with that method right there, I'll tell you.
Do you mentioned you're a fan of using, modern technology. Do you think there's, right now we've talked to Ray about this a couple episodes ago, the last episode, and there's a lot of people, like traditional hunters, that are saying that like using reaping or decoys or fanning them, it's, you're more or less cheating because there's like some sort of natural instinct for the gobbler. Like they almost can't help themselves but to come over and react to that. And, that like they give Waddell hell, they give Mark hell, and I kind of look at guys like you that helped form this industry and were some of the first guys that were hunting turkeys, and you've seen it all. Is it much different than when you developed mouth calls, or when you developed the first aluminum call, or when we started having pop-up blinds, or is it much different than anything through time that has been developed to help the hunter get an edge?
Well, I believe that right now the pop-up blinds, to me, they ought to be illegal. It just makes it so easy.
Yeah.
It's easy. I've had turkeys wanting to stick their head right in the window.
Oh, man.
Maybe
I'd like to find those turkeys myself.
Hey, don't get me wrong. I use them. But I have a little short one that just takes a little turkey seat on it, in it, and I'm in there, but how you could go out in the middle of a bean field, turkeys flew up the roost in the evening. You could set that in the middle of a cut bean field, a flat bean field, stick a 8x8 blind up there and get in it with a decoy in front of it. And they come up to it like they don't even know it's there. To me, they're more effective than decoys.
Yeah. But you use them.
How do you use them?
Yeah, but you use them, right?
Oh, heck yeah. I told you, I'm all for modern technology.
That's right. Yeah.
To make it easier on me, I don't have to walk so far anymore or anything like that. I'm in. All
right. Good deal. What's next, Tim?
Well, we got story time with Uncle Ray. And so it's one of my favorite parts of Ray's radio show. Folks don't listen. KFNS 590 The Fan in St. Louis.
So what do you got for us, Uncle Ray?
Like in seminars and story times, you always say know your audience, but this seems like a pretty good audience. We were talking mouth calls and diaphragm calls, and the first mouth call I saw, store-bought mouth yelper, was a Penn's Woods. It was in Turner's Feed Store in Belgrade, Missouri in the 60s. And old Joe was a friend of my Uncle Lee, and he brought that in up to my grandma's. He had a 1950 GMC pickup truck with a spiderweb windshield in it, and he had his hat always on backwards before it was popular. Pants was always unzipped and chewing everybody else's chewing tobacco. This guy was a mess. But he got out of the truck and he said, look, I got the first store-bought mouth yelper in Iron County. And he said, I'm going to kill a turkey with it in the morning. My uncle says, no, you better not. Look, it says, well, it says right here, take it out of the package, put it in your mouth, go yelk, yelk, yelk. That turkey going to come running in. He said, you need to learn how to use that. He said, I'll learn in the morning. So I was just a little kid. I went with my uncle and with Joe in his truck and went out on the mountain, and we dropped Joe off there at the glade, and we was going to walk on in. And Joe had his flashlight in his mouth, was reading that thing, opening it up. And we got down there and got ready for daylight, and my uncle, boy. They started gobbling, and by the time we heard old Joe up there, turkey, gobbling at it. So we're going back and forth, and Lee said, I told him to try that before we got out here. He said, we're going to go up there. Sounds like he's dying. So we went back up there, missing out on turkey hunt. We got up there, and there's old Joe on the glade down on all fours, looking down, heaving, doing the mouth. He said, I told you to try that before you get out here. So Joe looked up at him and said, I think I swallowed it.
Oh, no.
He said, are you sure? He says, I'm pretty sure. I've been through 3 piles of puke, and I ain't found it yet.
Oh, that probably wasn't in the instructions anywhere.
Yeah, you don't swallow it.
Yeah.
It is a weird, weird feeling, though.
He's saying so. You all right, Ernie?
I think Penn Woods didn't make lead frames.
Bringing it back around. Captain Ernie. Wow.
Hey, do I get a free DeerCast?
Ernie, you get a free DeerCast anything you want. You just tell us what you need.
We'll get it signed.
Hey, you up there, Ernie. Hey, Ernie, guess what? I love you, brother.
Too, buddy. We go back a long way. That's
You
for
bet.
Sure.
That's awesome.
And Ray rode around 3 Mile Island in the boat.
I'm not even going there. Not even going to bring that up.
Mile Island, we stayed at a cabin in the Susquehanna River.
Yeah. You and Paul Butsky in the bed together in bikini underwear. I ain't going there.
That was after. It was right after that 3 Mile Island disaster.
Water was glowing.
No way.
Yeah, and we're still here.
I don't think you're worried about lead diaphragm calls.
Yeah, you got bigger problems to worry about.
What these guys don't know, Ernie, is that we could do 100 stories like that.
God.
turkey.
All right.
Book. I to write a book. I've been asked like about 8 or 10 times. I ain't writing a book. Ray's got a book. That's good enough.
Your book would be a tell-all.
Ernie's
You got to wait till everybody dies first so you can get away with telling the stories.
Including me.
Hey, we got one more thing to do here before we got to let you go. And it's something we do every week. It's called the Real Wild Clip. And basically it's some clip that we have in the archives or somebody sent us, and we play it and we all comment on it and see what we got. So this week it's a surprise. I don't know which one we got this week, but this week's Real Wild Clips brought to you by DeerCast.
Oh.
Okay. Oh, so we got turkeys flying down off the roost off of a hell of a high bluff.
They're going to roost flying off a cliff.
Okay, you're right. Yeah.
I mean, that's an ingenious place to roost.
Ain't no coyote going to get them there.
No. How
No.
big of a drop you think that
It's
is?
cliff diving. It looks like it's like 150 feet or something.
Oh, at least.
They're just free falling
Cliff
almost.
diving.
That's
Is that what state is that? What state is that, Scott? Colorado?
It's out west, yeah. Definitely out west.
That makes sense, but boy, they're just lining up on the edge, almost like penguins jumping into the
that second rock down is where I'd like to set up.
Yeah. Boom. Good luck getting to that one. Well, where do you think they fly down to? Like, surely they in the morning they don't fly up off the roost.
Oh,
they fly.
they might.
You think they get up 200
They
200
could.
yards
They
like
could-
that?
They could if they want to.
Wow.
Depends on what's up there, I guess.
I don't know about that one. I would guess they'd glide down. There
Yeah.
must be a meadow or something down below.
Yeah.
Actually, they probably work it and go all the way around the back of, to that night, to that evening, and probably do the same thing. It's easy for them to get in the tree from there. So all I got to do is jump off the cliff.
Yeah. Wow. That's a pretty wild clip. Real wild,
Hey,
actually.
whoa.
Hey.
You did that on purpose.
How many
Jeez.
times does that happen, Ray, where that turkey's gobbling up on top of a ridge like that? You go up there and he flies all the way to the bottom.
Oh, yeah. More than once. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, you're at the bottom and you're calling and he's gobbling. You say, well, he ain't coming. And you go all the way around. You get up there and you call and he's at the bottom.
What do you know?
All right. Well, it's been fun, gentlemen. Any wise words before we depart?
No, just I would like to mention one thing I heard last night, and it's a sad thing I'm going to mention. I don't know if you know about it, Matt, but years back I came up with a thing where every year at the Grand Nationals we have a toast. We have a toast at night to the competitive turkey callers that have left us, and we do it every year. And unfortunately, the list is getting bigger and bigger. And Mark, Mark Tracy actually does the list now, but unfortunately, I text Mark right before the show, and I told him we got to add another guy to the list because Scott Hook passed away last.
Oh, no.
No. Sorry to hear that.
That's yeah. So again, unfortunately, now Scott Hook's on the list, and God bless him. God bless his family.
Yes.
I always enjoyed talking to Scott in Nashville every year at the Grand Nationals, and it's Hook's call, so it's a sad deal that he is now no longer with us. So God bless.
He's a good man.
Scott.
God bless him.
Yeah, I hate to hear that.
Sorry to hear that.
Well, hopefully, as we continue on, new generations of callers continue to come into the realm, I guess, and keeps this thing moving on and on for years to come.
Yep.
So,
Amen.
Well,
Let's
next.
hope things like this going.
That's right.
Yeah.
Going in a good and in the right direction.
Yeah. Well, appreciate the influence you guys continue to have on the current generation and subsequent generations. So thank you.
Absolutely.
And then next week we have Ron Jolly from Turkeys for Tomorrow on. So
Awesome.
excited to visit with him. We'll be talking about phase 2 of turkey season then.
All right. Well, Ernie, we appreciate you. We love you. Thank you for joining us. And if you ever need something, you know where to get a hold of us.
Thank you, guys. My pleasure. Always good talking turkey.
All righty.
All right.
You bet,
Take
brother.
care.
Until next time, peace out.
DeerCast is now supercharged with maps. Get ahead of your game with killer new features like live Doppler radar, wind check out to 5 days, virtual rain gauges, GPS path tracking, and more. Plus, get our 14-day revolutionary DeerCast prediction and access to DeerCast Track. Prep, predict, and pursue with DeerCast.
We're adding new videos every week, so make sure to click that subscribe button and check out all of our amazing content. This episode of DoD TV is brought to you by DeerCast. Prep, predict, and pursue your target buck.